The Galactic Historical Archives contained detailed records of every major conflict spanning 12,000 years. War was not uncommon among the stars. Territorial disputes, resource competition, ideological differences. The galaxy had seen it all. But there was one entry that every military academy across 300 worlds required their cadets to study. It wasn't the longest war. It wasn't the bloodiest. It was simply labeled the 3-Hour War, Human Involvement. Professor Keyleth stood before his class of young officers in training, representing 17 different species. On the holographic display behind him floated a simple question. Why do we fear human warfare? A Throken cadet raised his armored claw. Because they come from a death world, Professor? Partially correct, Keyleth acknowledged. But the Kresh also hail from a death world. The Vorathians evolved in even harsher conditions. Yet we don't fear their warfare the same way. Anyone else? Silence filled the lecture hall. Keyleth activated the historical footage. Let me show you why. The display showed the Zenith incident, a border dispute between the Talvar Collective and the Rigelian Empire. Both were powerful civilizations, and their conflict had dragged on for 3 standard years. Millions had died. Hundreds of worlds were caught in the crossfire. Humanity had stayed neutral. They'd offered mediation 17 times. Both sides rejected it. The war continued. Then the Rigelians made their fatal mistake. A Rigelian strike force, pursuing Talvar refugees, crossed into human-protected space. A civilian transport was caught in the crossfire, a human colony ship carrying 15,000 families. The Rigelians claimed it was an accident. They offered compensation. Humanity declared war. Both the Talvar and Rigelians initially dismissed it. Humans had the smallest military in the sector. Their fleet was a fraction of either empire's forces. Some Rigelian commanders actually laughed. The laughter stopped after 3 hours. Keyleth let the footage play. His students watched in growing horror as the human response unfolded. Humans didn't fight like other species. The Talvar had their honor codes. They announced attacks, fought in formation, respected surrender. The Rigelians had their strategic doctrine, established superiority, control territory, force capitulation through overwhelming force. Humans had something else entirely. They'd been watching both sides fight for 3 years. They cataloged every tactic, every weapon signature, every communication protocol. While offering peace negotiations, they'd been preparing for war. The human fleet struck simultaneously at 47 locations. They didn't target military installations first. They targeted communication networks. Within 12 minutes, both empires were effectively deaf and blind. Their fleets couldn't coordinate. Their commanders couldn't issue orders. Then the humans did something unprecedented. They broadcasted everything. Every Rigelian military frequency suddenly displayed the same message: coordinates. Not of human positions, of other Rigelian forces. The humans had cracked their encryption and were feeding the Rigelians their own intelligence data, but scrambled. Rigelian ships began firing on their own allies, convinced they were fighting Talvar vessels. Simultaneously, human agents, who'd been, peacefully, residing in both empires as diplomats, traders, and teachers for decades, activated. They weren't soldiers. They were information specialists. Within minutes, classified military databases were compromised. Strategic plans appeared on public networks. Embarrassing communications between commanders went viral. But the psychological warfare was just the beginning. Human combat units hit with surgical precision. They didn't try to hold territory. They destroyed infrastructure, power grids, shipyards, supply depots, everything that made modern warfare possible. And they moved so fast that by the time defense forces responded, the humans were already gone. 173 minutes after declaring war, humanity transmitted a simple message to both empires. Stop! Now! Both sides immediately requested ceasefire. Keyleth paused the footage. The humans suffered 0 casualties. Both empires lost approximately 12% of their military capacity. But more importantly, they lost something else, the certainty that they understood how war worked. A Centauri cadet spoke up, voice trembling. Professor, how did they move so fast? How did they know everything? Because humans don't prepare for war when war starts, Keyleth explained. They prepare for war during peace. Every human diplomat is a potential intelligence asset. Every human trade ship scans every system it visits. Every human cultural exchange is an opportunity to understand their potential enemies. He pulled up another document, Human Military Doctrine, declassified after the incident. This is their strategic philosophy. Every moment of peace is preparation for a war we hope never comes. They don't just study warfare. They study psychology, culture, technology, economics. When humans fight, they don't just attack your military. They attack your ability to think, to communicate, to trust your own systems. The classroom was silent. Humans call it total spectrum warfare, Keyleth continued. And it's effective because they're not just warriors. They're engineers who weaponize infrastructure. They're psychologists who weaponize information. They're diplomats who weaponize relationships. He looked at his students gravely. This is why we fear human warfare. Not because they're the strongest or the most aggressive, but because when humans go to war, they've already won. They just haven't told you yet. The lecture ended. The cadets filed out quietly, each one understanding why the first rule of galactic diplomacy was simple. Never give humanity a reason to fight. Peace, it turned out, was the only option.